All right. Today we're going to look at a very influential feminist literature in history. A lot of English teachers have read this book. All right, and it's written by none other than Simone. What's her name? Simone de Beauvoir. All right, she's a French existentialist and a woman of herself, and she wrote this very nice book called The Second Sex. All right, 1949. This is a very interesting book, one of her most notable creations, and so we're going to discuss some feminist literature today. All right, so essentially, what this book is about is it sort of discusses femininity, right? What that actually means and how it has been used to suppress women, right? Essentially, it discusses the female experience, right? And this will make sense. This will make a little more sense later on when I discuss it more thoroughly, right? Now, sort of the book comes out and gives us 3 reasons, right, why women have been treated as inferior to Beauvoir. I do. Welcome. Okay, we're looking at Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex. All right, so listen up. All right, first of all, she tells us that society teaches women to fulfill a male's need, right? They exist in relation to men. Right? That's the first reason she tells us that women are inferior. Secondly, she tells us that women follow external cues to seek validation of their worth. And so she brings up Hegel's theory of recognition in this book, which is very interesting, right? And thirdly, she tells us that females have less legal rights than men, right? Remember, this is 1949 when women had very minimal legal rights, but back then she used that to justify why oftentimes women struggle to become equal to men, right? Because of legal rights, right? This is before, women's suffrage and everything, all right? So, one of the most prominent ideas in The Second Sex suggests that to be a woman, you don't have to have some eternal feminine essence, right? And it's not a matter of biology. So essentially, how you are born doesn't actually make you a woman, right? Now, Beauvoir therefore poses a very, very interesting question. What is a woman, all right? Now, she tells us that a woman is not defined by her biology. And though she does accept that there are differences between each sex, right? She also says that being a woman is not defined by some specific essence, right? So that one critique of Maya Angelou's, what's it called again? That one poem she wrote where she says that it captures the essence of womanhood, it's capped. Because there is no essence to womanhood, according to Beauvoir. There's no essence to what exactly a woman is. So what exactly is a woman then, right? This is a question that Beauvoir tries to answer in her book, right? Now, she gives us this very amazing quote, right? And this is one of the most influential quotes of her book. It's one is not born but becomes a woman, right? This sort of flows into our ideas of the woman's experience, right? And so what it basically means, and this sort of quote drives the rest of the book, it essentially tells us that femininity is not grounded by biology. We're not born a woman, but rather it is grounded by their situation, right? It is what is around us, our social role, that defines what a woman is, right? So it's the experience of the woman that defines someone as a woman, right? So going back to the question of answering, what is a woman, right? In order to answer it, we have to answer it phenomenologically, right? And what that means, I'll explain a little later on, right? Essentially, it's not about, why is a woman, but rather, what is the woman's situation, right? That's the sort of question we have to answer here, right? So let us explain a few key, yes?
So basically, if you experience the things that a woman experiences, you are a woman.
Exactly, right? You are a woman because you experience the woman's situation, not because you are born in a certain particular way.
So is Eminem a black person?
let's not get too controversial here, right? I'm merely a messenger of the book. Okay, all right. Let's explain a few key terms we should know here, right? Now, the book is what we call.
That's a good point.
It's an existential phenomenology, right? So let's explain what phenomenology is. This is probably the word we don't actually understand here, right? Hi. Hi. We're looking at Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex. Yeah, feminism. Yeah. Okay, so what exactly is phenomenology? Well, phenomenology is the study of experience, right? So essentially, it studies how our consciousness navigates the world around us, right? That's what phenomenology is, study of that. And existentialism, as you may know, is just like the meaning of certain things, right? Why exactly are we here? But we should also understand that phenomenology is a bit different from empiricism, right? We've sort of looked at empiricism in the past, right? And the key difference is phenomenology sort of deals with what exactly, like how do we experience things, whilst empiricism looks at what exactly is in the experience, right? What can we actually see within this experience to justify certain things, right? So when we sort of put these two terms together, existential phenomenology is about understanding the meaning of the human experience, right? And that's pretty much sort of what The Second Sex is about. It's about understanding the experiences and the meaning of the females, the women. The women's experience. My bad. Apologies. Okay. So essentially, what Beauvoir tries to tell us is that gender isn't created by some essence, right? It is essentially, it manifests from how the world is structured. The world structures in a way that gender exists from that, right? And it has some sort of material effect on the world around us, right? Yeah. And so in existentialism, right, generally humans, right, are defined by existence and not the other way around, right? So essentially, let's read this again. What am I writing down here? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So essentially, we are defined by our existence, right? And so the females, the quality of femininity is defined by its existence. All right. That doesn't really make much sense.
So like,
I don't know what I was. What was I cooking
so
up?
basically, like a woman, gender is a social construct, right?
Yes, precisely. That's what Beauvoir tells us. Gender is a social construct. And it should be noted that this book was incredibly anachronistic for its time, 1949, right? This book was shocking, right? To tell us that gender doesn't actually exist. Like, people were like, what the fuck? What? Yeah.
But what's the outcome of that? Like for example, like if I were to say being a woman is when you have like, then that has an outcome. You know what I mean?
No,
right? That has an outcome. It
she
means
will-
you can birth children.
No. She tells us that
Okay.
being able to give birth to children does not
Oh,
define
no.
being a woman.
Like no. Theoretically, if I were to say,
is
I-
not born?
my bad. If I were to say that being a woman is having, and then the outcome is all women can have birth. But if being a woman is purely social experience, then like
This is not talking about like.
no, but like what do you take from
Beauvoir
this?
will answer what the woman's situation is, right? She will explain in this book what exactly is the female's experience and also justify why patriarchy exists and why it perpetuates. And she actually tries to solve it herself, which is really interesting. Okay, so what she first wants us to recognize is that this world is sort of wrapping around this gender binary, right? Male and female. And so she says that if we don't recognize this, we're acting in bad faith. Right? What that means in existential terms is that we refuse to confront truth. Right? And so essentially she's saying if you don't accept that the world revolves around male and female, then you don't understand the world around you and you fail to confront the truth. Right? So all those LGBTQ binary stuff, to Beauvoir, it just means you don't understand the world around you. You don't understand truth. The world exists around male and female, and that's how it is, how it ought to be. Right?
Just to note, like most people now don't agree. Most feminists now do not agree with Beauvoir.
Yeah,
Like-
this is, but again, 1949, right, with some crazy statements she made out there, right? She said that the world exists in a gender binary, right? Now, she also sort of discusses that this binary isn't equal, right? And that men sort of come out on top on this, right? So men have the superiority, and she explains that the superiority we treat as a right, right? And so, because we're privileged, there has to be some sort of reason for it, right? And we sort of justify these arbitrary reasons for why we are superior just because we're born into this as superior, right?
So like, there's no reason why
Yeah.
men should be superior.
Essentially, men are superior naturally in the world currently as we see today, right? Or at least in 1949. And so men justify that there has to be some sort of reason why men are superior, right? There has to be reasons why they're better than women, right? And so she argues this is partly why patriarchy is perpetuated, because men see superiority as a right to them, right? We see that we're better than women for some sort of reason, right?
You mean back then?
Yeah, well, at least back, okay, everything is sort of back then, all right, 1949. Just remember, this is like 60, 70 years ago, so, you know,
Yeah.
take things with a pinch of salt. Although some things are lingering truth. Men still see them, a lot of men see themselves as superior, and they see reasons for that, all right? Now, part of this inferiority, she explains, is because women are marked by their sex, right? So let me give you an example here, right? Pants. Pants can be worn by both men and females, right? And nobody, you know, looks at them any differently. But skirts, right? If a man wears a skirt, oftentimes we think, hey, this guy's trying to tell me something, right? Maybe he swings a different way, you know? But generally, we see that, you know, men who do wear skirts, we don't see that as entirely, you know, normal or masculine in that regard, right? And it's because skirts are marked by this feminine attribute, right? And so, essentially, there are a lot of things that can just be masculine and be fine, but feminine-coded things cannot be neutral, right? And that's what she sort of argues, right? Feminine-coded things are not neutral, but masculine-coded things can be neutral. And in this regard, Beauvoir provides the example that we can imagine a molecule, right? Literally dipoles. She imagine example of a dipole, right? And we have a negative end and a positive end, right? I don't know why she gets scientific, but she gives an example of poles, right? Actually, I don't know if it's Earth or not, but we're gonna imagine it this way, right? Essentially, what she tries to suggest is that men, we sort of cover this positive and neutral region, right? But women are specifically this negative bit here, right? The things that they encompass are less than men, right? And that's what she means by this marked aspect. Masculine marked things can be worn by females with a pant example, analogy at least. Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's part of the phenomenology, right? That's part of the female experience.
Yeah.
That's what she
Part of the
said.
female experience is that a lot of feminine marked things, right, are exclusively females, whilst men sort of have this greater liberty, right?
So up until now, guys, so up until now, it seems like she's just been explaining what's going on back
Yeah.
then, right? Does she ever
Yeah.
give an example? I mean, does she ever give an argument on why it shouldn't be this way?
She explains. She doesn't actually justify why it shouldn't be this way,
Right. So
but
she just
she does
describes
justify
why-
how we can fight against patriarchy.
Oh, okay.
She does explain how we can go against that, and explains why currently females don't do that, or at least in 1949, why females did not fight against
Okay,
patriarchy.
guys.
Yeah. So another concept she tries to explain is that women are defined relative to men, right? Whether Eve was born from Adam, or human beings are generally called mankind, right? A lot of things are actually like females are defined in relation to men, right? And so she explains that women are sort of this other category from men, and she explains that it's tempting for women to just stay as this other category. And there are a few reasons why they stay as this other category. Right? She tells us that women in 1949 lack the resources to fight against men and to be equal subjects, essentially. Right? This distinction between this other category, right, implies that they're not equal. Right? They're defined relative to men. And the reason why they sort of just accept they're this other category is because they lack the resources to, firstly. Secondly, because this bond between men and women, this dynamic between them, seems to be necessary towards society in many ways, right? And third of all, women are okay. They're content with their role as other because it would require too much effort and power to fight against patriarchy, right? Nowadays, we see that feminists don't give a shit. They will fight against men all they want, right?
Why is it necessary for society?
The relationship. Oh no, they're essentially born to believe that this relationship between men and women is a necessity.
They believe
Right.
that.
Yeah. So like again, she explained that this is further exacerbated by the fact that from the onset of their lives, women are taught that they are this other category. They're taught that you should exist in relation to man. You should serve the male. You exist in this patriarchy. Accept it. Right. That's sort of what has exacerbated misogyny, exacerbated patriarchy. These sort of things. Right.
So that's all part of the
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, that's all part of the
All
experience.
part of the phenomenon.
All right, let's rub some things out so we have some more space. Now, we move on to Hegel.
What?
Hegel.
Let's go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We love Hegel. She actually only uses part of Hegel
Yeah, because
because a lot of other things don't apply. I'm gonna take this up because I'm getting a bit heated up talking about Beauvoir.
Oh,
Alright.
I start sweating.
Yo, chill. Okay. So if we look at how do you spell phenomenology?
it's right there.
Oh, I spelled it wrong. Oh my days. Yo, my bad, guys. Phenomenology of spirit.
That's literally how you.
Yeah, that's literally Hegel, right? In Hegel's phenomenology of spirit, he explains this thing called the master-servant dialectic, or oftentimes called the Lord-bondsman dialectic, right? And in this book, Hegel argued that for consciousness to really emerge as self-conscious, it has to be faced with another conscious and be recognized as conscious, right? So for us to believe that we're self-conscious, we have to see that other consciousness recognizes us as conscious as well, right? It's this recognition sort of theory where your perception of yourself is based on how other people perceive you.
It's not just consciousness. It's like everything about your identity.
Applying to Beauvoir, consciousness. Okay. Anyways, so I can also bring a quote in from Hegel, right? He says that self-consciousness exists in and for itself when, as a result of existing, for another, that is, it exists only in being recognized. That's a lot of yap. All it's saying is what I just said, right?
What you just said.
It's a quote. I don't know. People back in that days had no grammatical English, right? They had very poor English, I feel like. But it's okay.
Yeah, so it's like your identity relies on other people.
Yeah.
What other people think.
Yeah, essentially it means that your identity relies on how other people see you, right? So like we can provide the example that I only see myself as smart because other people see me as smart, right? It's that sort of idea, right? You don't even know you're smart. I'm not actually smart, but if other people see you as smart, you tend to see yourself as smart as well, right? That's how it works, right? All right. Maybe glaze, bro. Such a goofy ass. I see you as dumb. You dumb, bro. Yeah. I shouldn't say that. It's being recorded. Whatever.
It's ethics club. Guys.
Yeah, it's an ethics club. We have to be ethical here. All right. Should I explain what?
Wait, so what does this have anything to do?
I'll explain. Okay, I'll explain. Essentially, right, in this sort of book, he sort of explains how when two consciousness meet, the first thing they do is to try to kill each other, right? It is I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, the first thing they try to do is kill each other, and one tries to stand on top, right? When two consciousness first meet, right? And because there is some sort of inherent fear of the other consciousness once you become self-aware, right? So you imagine yourself as this little conscious being, and then suddenly you see another conscious being, you're like, oh shit, what the fuck? Something else is conscious in this world besides me. You don't like them. You don't like that, you want to kill them, right? And you sort of enter this duel, right? Eventually, someone comes on top, right? And that person, becomes the bondsman. And the person who begs for their life becomes the slave, right? And that's sort of the dynamic she explains between men and women, right? So, essentially, she explains that genders exist in this conflict, right? We are not naturally in harmony, but rather the consciousness finds it disturbing that there are other consciousness, right? Okay, now if we apply this to the book, The Second Sex, In this case, the men want to recognize itself as the sovereign, right? And it wants to recognize the other consciousness as the other, right? It is this other thing that exists in relation to us, which we are fundamentally hostile towards, right? So if we apply that sort of idea, men are hostile to women because there's another conscious being that we don't like. Hey, the second sex. Oh, yeah. Close the door. Why do you keep? Okay.
So basically, it's like whenever so it's like all consciousness want to like dominate in some way.
Essentially, yeah, we want to
They
have.
want to be confident.
Yeah, we want the sovereign sort of
Yeah.
position,
Yeah.
right?
So that's why men.
That's why men inherently want to assert dominance over
Yeah,
women. Yeah. Yes.
So that's why it's bad that also culturally we've separated everything from men. Like it's always compared to men. So it's
Yeah.
almost as if men, like women, are separate conscious beings.
Precisely.
To men.
Exactly. That's how Beauvoir sees it, at least, right? Now, this is essentially, I wrote my notes, this is essentially like the whole EU girls have cooties thing, right? We see that girls have cooties, we don't want to be a part of them. We want to fucking beat the shit out of them. Right? That's how it is.
Same game.
That's the I don't know what's writing. Alright. Anyways. So Beauvoir actually also tells us that she doesn't actually understand why men want to become this sovereign conscious, right? But we simply just find ourselves in a situation where that's how the world is just how the world is, right? Where men are defined as the essential and women sort of the inessential, role of society, right? Now, she also explains that there's this conflict within women now, right? Who feel themselves that they should be essential, but they're treated as inessential. And that's where feminists come along, right? They think, hey, why am I being treated so poorly as inessential when I should be essential myself? Right? That's what feminists are, basically. Right? And that's why they fight for this patriarchy now, in the modern day world. Now, she sort of explains, to resist sexism, she's trying to explain how we can actually beat sexism now. Mainly from the role of women. Men can't really do much in this. It's just mainly the women, right? It involves resisting this othering, right, of women. We cannot treat women as other things now, right? It's about recognition as equal subjects, right? That's the first thing, right? And then only from there can we actually start moving towards equality. When we stop seeing women as inessential others, right, and start seeing them not in relation to men, but as this sort of equal standing as men, right? That's the first step, right? And so essentially, going back to Hegel, right, while the man is still going to be disturbed by this other consciousness, rather than trying to reject this consciousness, we should mutually recognize each other, right, as conscious and sort of form this bilateral and mutual relationship between men and women, right? A lot of this actually already exists in today's world, but again, 1949, women were treated as nothing, right?
So it starts with like this recognition.
Yeah, it starts with recognition as equal subjects, right? Almost like Kant in a way, almost as Kant, almost like Kant. Okay, wow, what is this giant quote? Okay, there's a lot of giant quotes she drops, which are all just yap, but essentially what she argues is that to answer the question, right, what is the woman's situation? She says that her life is shaped by men and is societally constructed to be objectified and considered as other, right? So she therefore argues that women shouldn't conform to being inessential, right? We should actually stop being lazy and just start fighting against patriarchy to be seen as equal, right? And we should take up their freedom, right? Because she actually argues that women do have a lot of autonomy, women do have a lot of freedom, but they just choose to be content with their role as other, right? And so instead, what women must do now is to take that freedom and to fight against men to prevent being seen as inessential. That is how we combat sexism and how we combat the current or maybe the past female experience. Yeah, that's about all I have. Oh yeah, the second sex, everyone. Now you know more feminist literature.